we are not nearly as dependent on Russia as we are with China. If China were to invade Taiwan, would we have the ability to use economic leverage on China, or would it be a case that China is much more capable of putting economic pressure on the United States to stay out of the invasion?
We've done, not necessarily at the commission, wearing other hats. We've done some wargaming and some simulations that involve the economic piece. And the reality is we're interdependent, and we could do a lot of damage to each other. There are some levers that we have that people would, it'd be pretty significant. They're relying on us for energy, and they're relying on us for food, us and the Western world, let's say. So, cutting off the Malacca Strait and halting agricultural exports could do a lot of damage. But when you look at a contingency like Taiwan, this is why China's game is to first win without fighting, but second, make it a fait accompli, quick endeavor that doesn't bring in other parties and not have to face that kind of severe sanction before the job is complete in terms of capitulation in Taipei. So there's a lot of moving parts to this. The frustrating part to me, and I suspect Mike and others, is, we don't actually prepare. Why isn't our Treasury Department leading an effort to say, if China attacks Taiwan, here's the 5 things we'd like to do in very quick order in order to put pressure on China and raise costs for them significantly to the point where they might reconsider their end goals with the particular operation. We don't talk to allies about it. We don't prepare, because even asking the questions gets people spooked. It gets our executive branch agencies. Well, we have constituents out there that if we even start looking at this would be very uncomfortable and nervous about it. So, we should be doing a lot more to prepare. We should have a game plan in place. I very much subscribe to the Dwight Eisenhower phrase that plans are useless, but planning is essential. I mean, we should be modeling this, we should be working this, and we should be developing a plan, and we should be sharing that plan with allies, and we should be ready. We're not.
How soon do you think the CCP will invade Taiwan?
Well, I do think they want to win without fighting. And there's no doubt they're preparing, Xi Jinping's directive to be ready by 2027. That's a ready by date. That's not a go date. But the so-called gray zone tactics, the coercion, the intimidation, the pressure, combined with information warfare, lawfare, they want to give people of Taiwan the impression that they have no alternative but to capitulate. So when you see something like a soft blockade, which could be from missile closure areas for a military exercise, it could be a lawfare move where they say, actually, we're the sovereign power that has the right to inspect commercial shipping coming in and out of Kaohsiung and Geelong. These are all things I would expect to see before an invasion. Now, there are other variables. If Lai Ching-te declares independence, which I don't think he would, he's a smart guy, that could trigger the anti-secession law and could trigger Chinese kinetic operations. If they sense that the United States is walking away from Taiwan or Japan is walking away from Taiwan, that might change their calculus. The national security strategy, which was just released, does have strong language in terms of our interest of deterring China and preserving Taiwan's status as it is. So, there are a lot of factors, but I think, we're going to see more coercion and more integration of political warfare, information warfare, and lawfare before we see that kinetic operation, which, by the way, still remains pretty risky. 80 nautical miles of water, mountainous, inhospitable terrain, unfavorable sea conditions for most of the year, all for a PLA that hasn't seen combat since 1979. So it's still a risk. So I think what we're focused on in the near term is these gray zone tactics and all the coercion and intimidation.
I've heard Randy give that pitch before, and every time I as I listen to him, I basically say, like, listen, the fight is already on. And the intention of the fight is not to actually have to go to war. And the part that Randy didn't mention, which I always think is really important to sort of remind people after you sort of hear Randy's riff, is that Salt Typhoon, Volt Typhoon, all of the cyber operations, all of the sort of public reports you hear about the Chinese and the MSS parking themselves all over American infrastructure, those are also gray zone tactics. And the purpose of those are to hold our political leadership hostage to decision making. And so anytime you hear that, personal data has been hacked, or, your Verizon or AT&T phone have been hacked, that is all part of this too. And so they're already deploying a whole of nation approach to making sure that Taiwan is sort of frozen in place, and so that they can sort of move the goalposts, and that the American political establishment and military establishment are held at risk as well, so that there's not sort of the decisions or decision space, I should say, to figure out what we want to do. And so that's all part of it as well.
In the commission report, you had some recommendations about what to do about those gray zone tactics in the U.S.
Yeah. So I guess another thing to point out about the commission is we do an annual report and tend not to repeat recommendations year in, year out, and try to bring fresh ideas to the Congress in every new report. So we've talked about gray zone tactics. We've talked about different ways to help the U.S. posture for this challenge. This year, we focused on the posture opportunities in areas surrounding Taiwan. So in the Philippines, the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement sites, in the Japanese Southwest Islands, in the Pacific Island region, Oceania. And, when you think about the U.S. ability to deter China, we're a Pacific power, but we're not fully resident in the Western Pacific. So we're very reliant on partners and allies to bring their own capabilities to bear, to really join in the effort to deter China, but also to give us access, basing, overflight, access opportunities. And so one of the recommendations was for Taiwan, that is essentially doubling its defense budget if all its commitments come through with a special budget and increasing the baseline annual budget, that they could take some of their money and actually help us by investing in infrastructure in areas surrounding Taiwan. So open up a foreign military sales case where they're not buying a weapon from the United States, but they're helping us build out a site in northern Luzon in the Philippines that would be available to us to forward deploy in the event of a contingency. So the posture challenges are very real. When you look at Admiral Paparo's plans for a Taiwan contingency and what he refers to as hellscape, we have to be able to get to the fight. We have to be able to posture in places like the Japanese Southwest Island chain in Philippines, Palawan, northern Luzon. So we're working on all that, but it's coming along very slowly. And we have our fights about color of money in the United States. Some of this is planned spend from military construction, so-called MILCON. Members of Congress don't like spending MILCON in other countries. They like spending MILCON in their district. So why not get Taiwan to contribute to the build out of these facilities, which at the end of the day are largely about the protection of Taiwan?
There's a lot more of this hour-long podcast to watch. Just click below to see it at ChinaUncensored.tv. When you join us there, you can be part of my exclusive China Uncensored 50 Cent Army, where we stand up to the CCP together. The link is below.